If anybody else was here, I would have beat them too.
There you are.
No, it's a perfectly reasonable response to a lunatic story, really. Let me just let you know that firearms officers from several forces have been brought in to help with that manhunt for Roll Moat. They include officers from Cleveland, Humberside, West Yorkshire, South Yorkshire, and ironically, I suppose, from Cumbria as well. So recently the scene of that manhunt for Derek Bird. So several forces sending specialist firearms officers into Tyneside to help out as best they can. Well, the Daily Telegraph's digital media correspondent, Emma Barnett, she's been looking through the morning newspapers. You have a freshly minted crop for us, Emma, starting with The Guardian.
Yes, a new piece of research has shown that the judiciary is failing to reflect the UK's gay and lesbian community. There's no official numbers to show how many gay and lesbian judges there are because...
illustrated with a picture of lots of men in wigs.
Yes, there's a few women dotted in there. Oh. But the study suggests that gay and lesbian lawyers fear that their private lives may be subject to additional scrutiny if they go to the bench, and also that there is a perception of hostility towards gay and lesbian judges. So obviously this is an issue that that needs to be dealt with at a senior level for diversity at the bench. But I mean, this is something that's been sort of inherent within the judges' culture since the 1970s, when actually gay and lesbians were formally excluded because you had to be married to take the bench. That was removed in 1991, but this study will put fresh pressure to include more gay and lesbian judges.
OK. Also in The Guardian.
Yeah, this is interesting. A group of MPs and union members from a group called Union's Parliamentary Group has putting pressure on that ex-servicemen and women need more support when leaving the armed forces.
Huge problem. Huge problem,
as the amount of ex-servicemen and women entering the prison population is increasing rapidly. There's no official statistics, but there's some varying from at least 3% of the prison population is now made up of ex-servicemen and women. And this particular call comes as this number is increasing, and that they need to have more psychological testing, resettlement programmes in place. And they sort of point to a particular story here, a man called John Dale, a former sergeant major. He now lives in a tent outside his brother's house because he's failed to find housing.
OK. The Independent's got a story about sun tanning. I've heard this story before in some respects, you know, kids developing rickets again and things like that.
Well,
because
it's interesting. Obviously, cancer research, a prominent charity, has done a lot to stop people from going in the sun and harming themselves, especially at midday. That's always the advice. However, they're actually redressing that strategy in a statement that The Independent has seen, which is to try and encourage people to go out in the midday sun just for a few moments without sunscreen.
Well, that's great scientific advice. Just go in the sun for a few moments.
The time required to make vitamin D, it's because of this deficiency in vitamin D, is less than the time needed for the skin to redden. So I think they're going to give a more precise figure. Sorry, than my my loose one there. But it's a confidential document that The Independent has seen, that they will be redressing that advice because people are not actually going in the sun at all.
Yeah, we've got to strike a balance there, that's for sure. You've got a story from the Daily Mail. Now, this is your BBC Boxes story, is it? Or...
No, this is about the British champions, the two boys champions in the doubles, Liam Brodie and Tom Farquharson, who stormed to victory at Wimbledon yesterday. Yeah. But interesting backstory is that for Liam's family, it will be a big victory because they've actually fallen out with the Lawn Tennis Association because his elder sister Naomi had her funding withdrawn after she posted on a social networking site that she'd got drunk with a few friends. So he actually said that he feels like this is sort of two fingers up to the LTA, which is quite an interesting backstory.
Well, it is, but I mean, there is the whole thing about whether our tennis players really need LTA backing because, you know, if you're an Eastern European, you don't have that kind of support, but actually you still tend to be very hungry and want to win everything.
Well, these two have been coached by their father after that happened. He downsized his home and has taken on all the responsibility himself.
Shades of the Williams sisters.
So, there you go.
OK. Tony Blair wearing a jacket he probably ought to have resisted the temptation of wearing.
Yes.
You can't really see it from that picture, can you? But take my word for it, it's dreadful, Tony.
It's not great. Well, yes, William Hague is looking back at scaling the former PM's security team.
Scaling back,
excuse me. After it's been revealed that last year the security team actually claimed £250,000 worth in expenses.
Yeah.
Obviously, following Tony Blair around on his many jaunts.
The problem is, Emma, loads of people want to kill him. You know,
yes.
I don't mean that in a personal way. I mean, it's just the fact that he's a Prime Minister of a country which has gone to war and other things. You know, we have to protect our former Prime Ministers, and it costs. What's the problem?
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, they do go on lots of very jolly holidays, though, as well. And
he's a Middle East peace envoy.
He's a Middle East... He does have a role, he does have a public role, but going on these holidays to Bali, etc., with his family, obviously the people guarding him have to eat. Those places are quite expensive. They then have to claim back. So it's a bit of a vicious circle. And it's quite interesting that his security last year actually cost over £100,000 more than Gordon Brown.
Who was Prime Minister?
Who was Prime Minister.
And don't forget, you see, a lot of these as well, he's going on these paid speaking commitments. So he's choosing to go.
All the actors are coming out to grind now.
For a lot of money per second.
Which is making more people want to kill him, maybe. I don't know, but that's something that obviously in the cuts that are happening will need to be examined.
If you've got a view on Tony Blair's bill for his bodyguards, news at sky.com. And your final story. Yes.
Jesus has been found on Google Earth in a farmland in Hungary. So a face, this story comes around time and time again, but a face of Jesus, I don't know if you can see it on screen, can sort of be seen in this field on Google Earth. So one man very excited about his discovery.
You can kind of see this as well.
It's like Virgin Mary to me. OK, Emma, thanks very much indeed. Emma found it, thanks a lot. You're watching Sunrise on our website, Sky. And Charlotte's here with the rest of the day's news. Charlotte.
Colin, thank you. Generous golden goodbye payments for public sector staff are expected to be cut in an effort to make sackings cheaper for ministers. It comes as the government prepares to warn civil service bosses of the need for a tough approach to pay and conditions. The measures could see the redundancy terms of fine.
If anybody else was here, I would have beat them too.
Who'd have thought it? And who'd have thought there's an international federation for competitive eating?
It's fantastic. There's an international federation for almost anything, I think you'll find, Charlotte. Fantastic. Those pictures do not get any easier to watch,
do they? No, they don't. No, it's quite uncomfortable. I do apologise if that's put you off your breakfast this morning.
Charlotte, thanks very much. Let's take a look at the front page of the newspapers for you this morning. skynews.com. Now, Charlotte's here with the rest of the day's news. Charlotte.
Thanks, Colin. Generous golden goodbye payments for public sector staff are expected to be cut in an effort to make sackings cheaper for ministers. It comes as the government prepares to warn civil service bosses of the need for a tough approach to pay and conditions. The measures could see the redundancy terms of 5...
Competition, if anybody else was here, I would have beat them too.
And if you're wondering, how did he do that? Could you replicate it? Well, Sean has sent me a message on Twitter saying they dip them in water so they can eat them
faster. So it slides down more easily.
Apparently so.
We'll get Rob Curling to reenact how it was done a little later in the Sports Bulletin. He'll enjoy that. He'll claim it on expenses as well, all those hot dogs. Charlotte, thanks very much. The Queen is...
Anytime and Sky Player.
The Live Desk opens now. Redundancy row plans to reduce the cost of cutting the civil service. Most Wanted. Interpol asks the public for help in catching Europe's most wanted. And Rafa's on a roll. Nadal wraps up his 8th Grand Slam title at Wimbledon. But first, at 9 o'clock, the man who shot and injured 2 people on Tyneside and killed another is still at large. 5 extra police forces are now helping the Northumbria force with the search. Sky's Gerard Tobb has the details.
After 3 shootings spread